Discipline feels like a fight because your brain is wired for the easy dopamine, but you can retrain it to actually enjoy the hard thing. Here's how. Because right now, most of your day is a small chemical negotiation. Your brain wants the quick hit, the scroll, the snack, the tab switch, anything that arrives fast and asks for nothing. That is not a character flaw. That is a nervous system that learned correctly that fast rewards keep you alive. The problem is, modern life hijacked that ancient wiring, and now the hard, meaningful things feel like resistance. Reading, training, deep work, silence. They pay off later, so your brain undervalues them now. But here's the part almost nobody tells you. Enjoyment of discipline is not a personality trait. It is a trained neural pathway, and you can build it on purpose. To understand how, you have to meet the chemical at the center of everything you do. Dopamine. Most people think dopamine is the reward. It is not. Dopamine is the promise of a reward. The little forward lean your brain does when it senses something worth pursuing. That distinction is the whole game. Because if dopamine is the promise, then whatever your brain expects to feel good becomes what you enjoy, which means enjoyment can be relocated. Right now, your brain has learned a very simple map. Effort equals pain. Distraction equals relief. It runs that map thousands of times a day without asking you. So when you sit down to do the hard thing, your prefrontal cortex, the calm decision-making part behind your forehead, tries to steer, and your limbic system, the older emotional engine underneath, floors the pedal in the opposite direction. That tug of war is what you call a lack of discipline. It is actually a training mismatch. And training mismatches can be corrected. Here is the shift. You stop trying to force discipline through willpower, and you start giving your brain new evidence about where the reward lies. Neuroscience calls this reward prediction updating. In plain language, your brain is always taking notes on what pays off. Whatever you consistently pair with a small good feeling, it starts to lean toward on its own. That is how you rewire enjoyment. Not by hating yourself into the gym, but by teaching your dopamine system that the hard thing is where the good feeling now lives. And once you understand that, discipline stops being a moral question and becomes a training question, which is much easier to solve. There are a few specific moves that make this happen, and each one is smaller than you think. Do not skip the third one, because it undoes the other four if you get it wrong. The first move is to attach the reward to the effort itself, not the outcome. Most people wait until the workout is done, the chapter is finished, the project is shipped, before they let themselves feel anything good. Your brain is watching, and it concludes, correctly, that the effort is the punishment and the finish line is the relief, so you flip it. Mid-effort, you deliberately notice something you like about doing the thing. The clean focus, the warmth in your muscles, the quiet in your head. You linger there for a breath. That tiny act of attention is not sought. It is neurochemical. You're literally telling your dopamine system the reward is here, in the doing, not later. Do that consistently for a few weeks and something strange starts to happen. The activity itself begins to pull you, not because you got tougher, but because your brain updated its map. Think of a runner who talks about missing their run on a rest day. That is not performance, that is a rewired reward system talking. The second move is to make the entry point almost embarrassingly small, because the friction you feel is not about the whole task, it is about starting. Starting is where your prefrontal cortex has to override the limbic pull toward comfort, and every override costs energy, so you shrink the doorway. Not a workout, 2 minutes of movement. Not a chapter, 1 paragraph. Not deep work, opening the document. Your brain cannot argue with 2 minutes. And once you are in, momentum does what motivation could not. This is how discipline stops feeling like a wall and starts feeling like a door. The secret is, you were never lazy. You were just trying to lift a door that was welded shut. Shrink the entry, and the same brain walks through easily. The third move is where most people get it backwards. You have to protect your baseline dopamine. Here's what that means. Every time you take a huge hit of easy stimulation, sugar, doom scrolling, 10 short videos in a row, your brain briefly spikes dopamine, then dips below its normal level to recover. In that dip, everything else feels dull. Reading feels boring. Work feels heavy. Even conversations feel flat. Not because they are, but because your baseline is temporarily underwater. If you live in that dip, discipline will always feel like suffering. So you do less of the spikes, especially in the morning. You let your baseline come back up, and suddenly, ordinary effort starts to feel interesting again. You will notice this within days. It is one of the fastest neurological changes you can feel in your own body. This is why the disciplined people you admire often seem a little boring in the morning. They are not depriving themselves. They are guarding the very thing that makes their day feel rich. The fourth move is to use identity as a shortcut. Because your brain is deeply lazy in a very useful way, it looks for patterns that match who it thinks you are, and then it runs them on autopilot. So instead of saying I am trying to be disciplined, you quietly tell yourself, I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who does the hard thing first. You do not say it loud. You say it in the moment of choosing. Every time your action matches that quiet sentence, your brain files evidence. Over weeks, that evidence becomes an identity. An identity does not need willpower to run. It just runs. The fifth move is the one that pulls it all together. Consistency over intensity. Neuroplasticity. Your brain's ability to physically rewire itself does not respond to one heroic effort. It responds to repetition. Every time you do the hard thing, even a small version of it, you thicken the neural pathway that makes it easier next time. Miss a day, that pathway stays. Miss a month, it starts to fade, which means the winning move is not a perfect week. It is a boring streak of small, honest repetitions that your brain slowly learns to expect. And here's where the real shift happens, the one nobody warns you about. Somewhere between week 3 and week 6 of doing this properly, you stop dreading the hard thing. You do not become a machine. You do not lose your humanity. You just notice one morning that you are already doing the thing before the resistance shows up. That is not motivation. That is your brain, quietly rewired. You will still have hard days. Your limbic system does not disappear, but now it is outvoted, gently, by a prefrontal cortex that has better evidence, and this is the quiet secret of disciplined people. They are not fighting themselves. They stopped a long time ago. They just kept feeding their brain the same small honest reps until their nervous system agreed that the hard thing is home. You can do the same. You do not need a new personality. You need a new pattern of attention, a smaller doorway, a protected baseline, a quiet identity, and time. Start today with something almost too small to fail at. Attach a tiny moment of enjoyment to the middle of it. Do it again tomorrow. Your brain is listening. It is always listening. Take a moment and ask yourself, honestly, which of these 5 moves have you been getting backwards? Because usually there is one, and that one is where the change lies. If this reframed how you think about discipline, tell me in the comments which move you are starting with. The small doorway, the mid-effort reward, the baseline reset, the identity line, or the boring streak. I read them, and it shapes what I make next. If this way of thinking clicked for you, you will probably like the video on how dopamine actually shapes your mornings. It pairs directly with what you just learned. And if you want more of this, calm, practical, brain-based habits you can actually use, subscribe and turn on notifications. I post a new one every week, and I keep it honest. No hype, no fluff. Discipline was never the enemy. It was just waiting for you to teach your brain where the reward really lives.